Hello, I'm Min Kobayashi. Hello and welcome to Take 2 of Circe, the review. I did this like a week and a half ago and then totally deleted the footage, so I get to do it again. Lucky me, and lucky you get to be more rambly. I thought this book was done very beautifully. However, I have some pretty major issues with it. So we're gonna dive into why I both love and kind of despise this book. I have very complicated feelings. Don't ask me to feel just one way about this book. This tells a whimsical story of a nymph who was born by the sun and this other nymph, who's the daughter of the ocean, how she becomes a sorceress that we all hate. And the legend of Circe that was first found in the Odyssey. Overall, this story is beautiful and the writing is phenomenal. The plot is meandering and slow, which I just love because I love stories that tell around the whole life. We begin with meeting her parents and them meeting and her mother being all like, "You can't have sex in my house with other women," which is feminism in ancient Greece, which is sad, but you know, good for her. And then we meet her and her siblings and her terrible childhood and her first love and her first heartbreak and her first everything else until she eventually becomes a witch who can do magic herbs. Yeah. We're just gonna end up with weird voices in this video, I don't know why. As I said, the writing is beautiful. It is very metaphorical. At first I was a little bit like, maybe this is a little bit too metaphorical for me. It could be toned down a little bit. It ends up being really beautiful. There's a lot of allusions and writing that I just think is really lovely. I love character-driven stories, and this is definitely one of them. Like everyone, I love a good reimagining of a villain. So she is a villain. She does a lot of really terrible things. However, she wasn't always a villain, and let's find out how she ended up like that. I find this take on her being a villain very interesting and beautiful. I love the incorporation of mythology. As I said, the plot is meandering. It reminds me a little bit of the book I read recently, which is called Exit West, that kind of goes into the backstory and the futures of all the characters. And this does this. Because it's mythology and you don't actually have to write the plot, you just have to tell them. I'm assuming that not everyone who read this book or will read this book has as much knowledge on mythology, because I'm just a Greek myth nerd and, you know, other people have lives. This goes in, it tells the story, and then it completes the story. And I think that's so beautiful because the characters don't just disappear with no explanation of what happened to the rest of their lives, and it's such a beautiful incorporation of myths and legends and different creatures, and I just really enjoyed it. Spoilers at this point. When I go into the dislikes, you are going to be spoiled on things, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then click away. I don't like how Madeline Miller deals with sexuality in this book. I think that the bestiality was a little bit much. Like, it shocked me. I must say that I have no desire whatsoever to read anything that includes bestiality. However, this does. And I do realize that bestiality is a thing in the myths. However, not all the bestiality in here was. For instance, I could find no record that says Helios sleeps with his cows. And I really didn't need that picture. Pasiphae does sleep with a cow and conceive a minotaur. However, she's bewitched to fall in love with that. She doesn't just go like, I'm gonna go and sleep with a cow. This is only what time the F word was used. I don't think there was any swearing at all. Very low key, like there wasn't anything sexual really in this whole book. Like the most things was like, I want to lay down on the ground with him, or he came to my bed. They're doing construction outside. The whole house just moved. And then the handle of rape. I'll be very honest, I'm a survivor of sexual violence and I have PTSD as a result. I really don't like reading books that deal with rape. No one told me this. First, we have Hermes, who makes a joke about nymphs not screaming loud enough and getting away. She like boots him out of her bed and I'm like, good job, girl. But then we have the rape from the sailors, and this whole scene is not from mythology. It is not Madeline Miller adapting this from mythology, which I still would have found like, okay, yeah, but I understand you're going to the source material. No, this was completely added, and if it had been a guy, we would have had a great interesting reason on why he became a villain. For girls, just have him get raped. It was not handled in a good way. I think it was only for plot convenience. The fact that she able to turn them into pigs right afterwards. Right afterwards. You couldn't have had that happen 5 minutes earlier? It just really ticked me off. We do have the fact that she deals with you know, going and scrubbing herself, but that's not really touched on again. And someone who has PTSD understands that this isn't something you just go, nope, yeah, went through that, scrubbed myself once, I'm good. So entering sexual and intimate relationships after that can be very difficult. However, we have her being like, yeah, I could turn most of them into pigs, but some of them I decided to sleep with, and then I would like scrub myself afterwards. But that's the rest of it. When Odysseus shows up, she has no issues sleeping with him, and it's never touched on again. This is a major issue. This is something that affects people for the rest of their lives. Good that you mentioned it like twice, but you didn't ever deal with the psychological things. Really, you just kind of mentioned that she was scrubbing herself. I would have wanted it handled a lot better. Plus, it did need to be there. Find a more interesting reason for a woman to become a villain than rape. Then we have the whole Odysseus and Circe and adultery, and I realized this was from the myth, so I don't have an issue with it being there. I do have an issue with how it was handled. My history teacher always said, you can't judge people in older times by 21st century morals, and I agree. However, I'm pretty sure it's not an invention that women were like, hey, can you not sleep with my husband? And husband, I am not marrying for 20 years and staying pure over here, and you're gonna sleep with every girl along the way. Takes two to tangle. Circe knew she was married. He constantly talks about his wife. Like, one inner thought that's like, maybe I shouldn't sleep with this dude? That's all I'm asking. Really long name that starts with a T. She ends up with Odysseus's son. The brother of her son. That is so screwed up. That, like, I realize that's not actually incest, but it's incesty, and I don't like it. It's kind of like when Hamlet calls Gertrude and the king's relationship incest. That's even less weird because then there's no biological things. You just slept with his brother also, which is, it's kind of weird. But yeah, when you sleep with someone's father versus brother, that's different. That's weird. And also, he's the biological brother of your child. That's really not okay. I'm really happy that she ended up happy. I'm just not happy who she ended up with. And that does not happen in the mythology either. Couldn't you have just incorporated someone else, Madeline Miller, for her to fall in love with? It's not like it's comic books. You know, I'm comic book obsessed when I'm talking about mythology and mention it as comic books. Anyways, it's not in the mythology, so doesn't need to be there. One thing that I do really love that happened at the end, in the mythology, she makes them all immortal, and they live happily ever after in their immortal bliss. She chooses to be human instead, and that beautiful ending was outstanding. And again, as I said, I had a lot of issues reading this book and being like, I absolutely love it, and there's parts I absolutely hate, and I have thoughts. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads because I did think it was a decent book. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy reading and writing.
High in her tower, she sits by the hour, maintaining her hair.